CBS program 60 Minutes last night, President Obama tried to allay concerns that the palpably hasty approach that he's taking to overhauling America's healthcare system will not run afoul of the old axiom that haste makes waste. He said, quote, "I intend to be president for a while, and once this bill passes, I own it." Now, this prompted Bill Kristol, the pundit and editor of the Weekly Standard, to respond rather sharply, and I thought quite properly. He said in a posting at the Weekly Standard's website, quote, "No, Mr. President, it's not about you. If legislation passes, you don't own it. We all own it. Any health care bill will become part of the U.S. Code, not simply an item on the Obama White House website. We will all feel its effects. We are all responsible for the future of our country. Here, the people rule," unquote. Now, I'm willing to give the president the benefit of the doubt that he may have simply meant in a very colloquial way to say that as chief executive, he'll be responsible for implementing and executing the legislative authority given him by the Congress. But having said that, I think this four-word phrase Bill Kristol's come up with, "Here the people rule," elevates very helpfully what seems to be the trajectory of the Obama presidency, one that's quite worrying. I'd like to talk a little bit about why I think it's worrying. We have witnessed, I think, in terms of the consolidation of power over large parts of the economy, and to some extent over our society more generally, in the hands of the federal government, a supplanting of the nation's fundamental constitutional arrangements and the institutions that flow from them. It's a trajectory that seems unmistakably to be moving from the notion of the people ruling to the idea that certain people will rule, specifically the president. Now, reduced to its essence, the idea that has governed our country for over 200 years is that it is indeed, as Abraham Lincoln called it, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. It is a government that is representative and accountable. And if one departs dramatically from those arrangements, it's almost certainly the case that one will see us no longer a country of laws, not of men, a country that is representative and accountably governed, not under the fiat of an individual or a small clique. Now, what are the warning signs about this trajectory that I submit President Obama is on? First, there is the problem that has been noted by many. What we have increasingly seen is the federal government exercising more and more power over our economy, most obviously in the financial and automobile industries, perhaps soon in the healthcare industry. Fully a sixth of our economy will be at stake in that one industry alone. Of concern, of course, is the prospect that among the faceless bureaucrats that are now increasingly unaccountable over all of these aspects of our lives have been introduced some 30 czars. The example of Van Jones, perhaps better described as a commissar than a czar, given his self-described communist background, is a particularly worrying case in point. At the same time, the checks and balances that the founders built into a co-equal branch of government in our legislature have increasingly withered. Today, it is typically the case that there is very little real deliberation, let alone open debate about legislation moving through the House and Senate. In fact, it is often now the case that monstrous pieces of legislation are simply thrown on the desks of legislators and they're asked to vote on them without having read them. This is hardly, I think, what we anticipated, we have come to expect in terms of the sort of representative and accountable government of the past. And indeed, it may even be that the Senate, which has long been understood to be the vehicle through which the sensible and careful evaluation of legislation was to take place, will ram through this health care bill. It can only do so, as a practical matter, by dispensing with its own traditions and even its rules concerning the protection of the rights of the minority. Then there's another problem, which we've talked about a lot here, Center for Security Policy's TV video programming, namely transnationalism. The Obama administration seemingly is embracing this idea, both with the people that it is putting into office and with the policies that it is espousing, that the products of foreign bureaucracies, foreign governments, entities, courts, should be considered on a par with, if not in some cases at least superior to, the products of our own constitutional processes, our laws, our regulations, and our rulings of our courts. When you look at folks like Harold Koh, the lawyer put at the top of the State Department's food chain, Eric Holder, the Attorney General of the United States, Sonia Sotomayor, President Obama's first pick to the Supreme Court. These are people who have, to varying degrees of explicitness, described themselves as transnationalists or embraced the theory of transnationalism. And if they are successful, I think there's no question that we will see less and less accountability in the decisions that influence more and more of our lives and our fortunes. Then there's another problem that has reared its ugly head of late, I think, and that is what might best be described, certainly in totalitarian systems, as a kind of cult of personality, a effort on the part of our leader to so dominate the media and to benefit so much from a mostly uncritical, often propagandistic, and certainly favorable treatment at its hands, to prevent real alternatives to his views from being heard and the kind of challenges to his consolidation of power from taking place. Now, I'm under no illusion that any American president gets a lot of attention from the press and to varying degrees a lot of public interest follows his activities. I think what has happened under first the campaign of Barack Obama and more recently as president, however, is sort of in a different class. And what we have seen, I think, in particular the past 7 or 8 months, is a man who is increasingly able, through the favorable treatment, as I said, of the media, the kinds of shrines that you come across in bookstores and airports, the magazine racks, seemingly wall-to-wall, promoting his family, the man himself, and even corporations seizing upon, as Pepsi has done, the logo of the campaign to promote its products, while seemingly promoting Barack Obama as well. Perhaps the most dramatic example of this kind of cult of personality was the video made by Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher a while back, in which dozens of Hollywood celebrities were photographed espousing, among other things, taking care of elderly and poor children and the like. But the bottom line was really quite stunning. It urged the viewer to join these celebrities in pledging to be a servant to our president and to all mankind. That strikes me as perhaps just, the loony left in Hollywood going over the top in embracing one of their own, enthusiastic beyond words about the prospect that somebody who espouses their agenda will be President of the United States. But still, the notion that these prominent figures are popularizing, namely, that the relationship between the president and the public should be one of ruler and servants, is wholly incompatible with the American Constitution and the system of government that it prescribes. Worse yet, it seems that it's consistent with the aforementioned affronts to the principle, here the people rule. And if this persists, if this trajectory continues, my guess is that we're going to see the kind of sentiment that was expressed here by tens of thousands of Americans who were angry about what's happening to their country be just the first blush of the struggle that will be fought out in the months ahead, hopefully in a nonviolent way, needless to say, to reestablish government of the people, by the people, and truly for the people. Thanks for listening.